Hello everyone, my name is Dr. Sandra Flores. I'm a recent graduate of National University and my specialization is in English language learning. I'll be sharing my dissertation research with you today. Are you ready? So welcome to Educators, Cultural Competence in Higher Education. This is a qualitative single case study. Before we get started, I'd like to introduce you to a few important points around this topic. The composition of the student body has become diverse over time as more women, people of color, immigrants, and foreign students are enrolling in higher education in the United States. And when these students, when they come to higher education, they're bringing not only their language, but they're also their cultures. And what does that mean? Why is that important? Well, the students' cultural background play a role in ELL learning, as some of them use some learning strategies in the classroom. For example, Asian and Middle Eastern students tend to rely on memorization learning strategies. It's also been noted that the written voice or the writing style may be significantly influenced by their cultural backgrounds. So these learning strategies may restrict learning participation. So these cultural differences may become barriers that practitioners need to recognize. The problem of the study was some higher education educators have limited cultural competence, which has an impact on the ESL learning process of English language learners. The purpose of the study was to explore higher education educators' perspectives on cultural competence to understand to improve the ESL learning process of ELLs. For purposes of this study, I'm referring to ELLs as immigrants, international students, and refugees. There are two research questions for this study. The first one was what are the educators' perspectives regarding the cultural competence? The second research question is how do educators perceive they support the ESL learning process of ELLs through the cultural competence? The theoretical framework that I used was Lev Vygotsky's sociocultural theory that emphasizes on the society's role in the learner's development. So social interaction plays an important role in cognitive development. And according to Vygotsky, children learn through guidance and collaboration with the more knowledgeable individuals in social interaction. He put an emphasis on the scaffolding tools such as language, science, materials, and meaningful activities. This social cultural theory helped us and assisted to frame the study problem, the purpose, and the research questions. The review of the literature. So what does the literature say about this topic? First, let's just look at the role of culture. What does culture mean when you think of this word? What does come to mind when you think of culture? Generally, people will define culture as a group's religion, customs, social habits, foods, art, music. However, culture has many definitions and is still evolving. There are some scholars who define culture with different dimensions. They say that culture extends beyond ethnicity and also can be defined in terms of age, gender, sexual orientation, disability, and social economic status. There have been noted some differences between individualist and collectivist cultures. For example, there are students who are passive and more competitive. Amotiari's 2022 study revealed that all classes and sectors of life are segregated in Saudi Arabia. So they're placed together in Western mixed gender classrooms. Saudi women may react differently to Saudi men. So these cultural differences may cause differences in performance in the classroom. There have been concerns with educators' cultural competence noted. Burns' 2022 study revealed that nursing educators had varying levels of cultural competence. Guler's 2022 mixed method study found that some nursing educators were not culturally competent, And some value diversity by welcome ELLs, but they were not prepared to teach ELLs. The research methodology that I used for this study was a qualitative methodology that explores the what and how phenomena to produce meanings and promotes a deep understanding of social settings and interactions. For the design, I used a single case study design that involves a detailed analysis of a bounded system. For this study, the bounded system was educators' perspectives, classroom interactions, which emphasize on the interactions between educators and ELLs, and also the administrative support. For qualitative methodology, it's important to note that the role of the researcher is the main instrument throughout the process. So I had constant reflection on my own experiences as an immigrant and an English language learner myself around the subject, the participants, and the research analysis and interpretation of the study. The research site was a community college in California. This sample was appropriate because California has a significant concentration of ELLs. To recruit participants, I used a purposive sample. So this sample was a multidisciplinary sample of 12 higher education educators from 10 different academic departments. I had a predetermined criteria, which was for educators to be tenure track, or adjunct educators, to have a master's or doctorate degree, for them to have over 3 years of teaching experience in higher ed, and for them to have worked with ELLs in the role as their higher education educators. I'll be sharing the participants' demographics. As you can see, I had participants from different academic departments ranging from modern languages, world history, art, business, early childhood education, communication studies, earth science, kinesiology, business, life science. The materials that I used were semi-structured individual interviews and one focus group. I had both questionnaires field tested by 3 field experts. For data collection, I collected data in 2 phases. For phase 1 was the 12 semi-structured individual interviews over Zoom. For the focus group, I had 4 of the 12 participants volunteering for the focus group. And here, as you can see, I had 2 of the participants in the focus group were working on their PhD at the time of the interviews. For data analysis, I used a thematic analysis and used in vivo for data analysis. The findings were used to provide information on whether cultural competence was evident in the classroom, provide recommendations to support educators, and improve ESL learning. I have to disclose my limitations. My first limitation was my definitions of culture and the participants' definitions differed, or they were different. I did not provide a definition of culture, nor did I define cultural competence to participants. Half of the sample was part-time. 7 of the 12 educators came from a European American background, and I also have to disclose that I'm a novice researcher. The findings are related to the 2 research questions. The first theme that I identified was educators' limited cultural competence. As Jennifer from the early childhood education department shared, my cultural knowledge, I don't believe I have a huge amount of cultural knowledge on board. The second theme that I identified was educators' uneasiness toward ELLs. I had Anna from the modern language department sharing some Arab or Muslim girls, they don't like working in groups with boys. So if I put them in group of boys and girls mix, they just shut down. The third theme that I found was educators' preparedness to teach ELLs. I had Eve from the Earth Science department sharing, like she feels frustrated because she has to assess the students, even though she was certified to teach English as a foreign language many years ago. The fourth theme that I identified was the slow progress of cultural competence in higher education. I had Lisa from the Communication Studies Department sharing. You have other instructors who just, they say, this is my standard, I'm not changing my standard. And then it's like, dude, your students are coming from everywhere, and you really need to bother to consider that maybe you're not doing it in a way that is helping your students anymore. When you had all white students from the US, sure, sure. The fifth theme that I identified for this research question was a limited or lack of institutional support. When asked what is the major source of information that shaped her cultural competence, Devi answered, yeah, experience, because having the students in the class learning, watching them, seeing how it changes, like I haven't gotten too much support from the college. For the next research question, I identified educators' instructional strategies to support ELLs. All of them included culture in the classroom. They gave extra time to ELLs, and some made minor instructional adjustments. For example, Anna, she mentioned in Arab culture, we don't have like this, like being on prom on time is considered important. So it's okay for people to be late. So she does not mind when students are late because she's very used to that. And it's like the first 15 minutes of her class, she does not do important things. She does more of her low things and chicken in that way. So because she knows they're going to come in late. The next theme that I identified was educators creating a safe learning space for ELLs. Most of them build relationship with ELLs, and also a few brought their abroad experiences into the classroom. Lisa from the Communication Studies Department shared, like as she was talking to a student after class, she was face to face with him, but the student kept moving to be next to her, so consciously she kept positioning herself to be face to face, and all of a sudden she'd remember her training. She was like, plant your feet, Lisa, let him adjust to what was comfortable with it for him. And sure enough, like in Korean culture, you want to be side by side because this is confrontational. The implications are suggested, and they're related to the research questions. The first implication that I have is based on the educators' belief on their preparedness of shared cultural linguistic backgrounds and with ELLs and educator certifications to teach ELLs, and the tools and resources used by educators. I recommend that educators must receive ongoing cultural competence training to learn different cultures and include their cultural competence in their course to meet ELL's needs more effectively. The next implication for this study was as educators included culture in the classroom, gave extra time to ELLs, and made minor adjustments in their instruction, improving educators' cultural competence will facilitate more learning, more meaningful interactions in higher education spaces. The last implication is as educators build relationship with ELLs, higher education institutions must consider improving educators' cultural competence to support and improve the ESL learning process of ELLs. For practice, I have two recommendations. The first one is cultural competence is called for in every discipline in higher education. This professional development and training may help improve cultural competence, help ease educators' uneasiness toward ELLs, help educators predict student behavior, reduce microaggressions between educators and ELLs. There's been literature on cultural competence that supports providing educators with cultural knowledge, effective practices, and self-reflection about their biases. And this can be done with in-person trainings and online trainings. The second recommendation I have is for institutions to support all faculty with opportunities to teach internationally. If teaching abroad is not possible, then educators should develop a relationship with ELLs by getting to know them on a personal level. And there's previous research that supports this, as Song and Ken in 2022 found that North American faculty not only were open to other cultural traditions and different ways of thinking, but they realized that they did not know much about the learners' and collaborators' social cultural dynamics as they did back in the United States. For future research, I have 3 recommendations. The first one is to extend the sample size across institutions with multiple case studies and exploring several research sites. The second one I have is for future work to investigate the access, if any, educators have to cultural and diversity training. The last recommendation is a more diversified sample of participants is recommended. And I also recommend for more community colleges to be explored around the world. Let me just conclude by stating the key conclusions from the findings. I gained insight into the educators' perspectives, opinions, and attitudes regarding the cultural competence when teaching ELLs. Despite admitting to a limited cultural competence, most educators believe they were prepared to teach ELLs based on their shared linguistic and cultural backgrounds, the tools and resources used, and the certifications to teach ELLs. However, they had a desire to know more about the ESL students' cultural backgrounds. I also want to emphasize that educators called for cultural and diversity training, as there is a slow progress in higher education. However, some departments, the art, early childhood education, and communication departments are making progress. I also want to state that this study helped provide rich contributions of knowledge to advance the ESL literature by equipping educators with knowledge and preparedness to support the ESL learning process. I want to thank you everyone for watching this and for your interest in my research. If you would like to reach out, you could email me at sandrafloresphd@gmail.com. Thank you.